Before we get into Lydia and Zach, I want you to think about this. When someone marries into a family and suddenly starts judging everybody, is that person the problem? Or did they just walk into a house full of old rules, old resentment, old religious pressure, and accidentally expose what everyone else has been trying to outgrow? Because that is what makes this Lydia and Zach situation so much bigger than a normal in-law fight. On the surface, this episode makes Zach look like the obvious problem. Ethan and Isaac are frustrated. They are talking about the Montana trip, and according to them, Zach was allegedly making comments about alcohol, card games, TV shows, music, and even the way Mariah lives inside her own home. And let's be real, if you are a guest in somebody else's house, and you start acting like you are the spiritual property manager, people are going to have a problem. But here is where this gets messy. Lydia did not appear out of nowhere with these beliefs. She was raised in the Plath family. She grew up in a home where strict rules, religious standards, purity culture, and lifestyle control were not treated like extreme ideas. They were treated like normal life. Kim and Barry built that world. So now that Lydia still seems to believe in a version of that world, why is everyone acting so shocked? That is the part nobody in this family really wants to sit with. Zach may be overstepping, Lydia may be defending him too hard, Ethan and Isaac may have valid concerns. But the Plath family is also being forced to look at something uncomfortable. Lydia is not rebelling against how she was raised. In a lot of ways, she is still living inside it. And maybe that is why this conflict hits such a nerve. Because the real question is not just, is Zach judgmental? The real question is, why is the Plath family so angry at Lydia for becoming exactly the daughter they raised her to be? And why does every outsider who gets close to this family eventually become the villain? First, it was Olivia. Now, it is Zach. So today, we are not just recapping the Montana drama. We are breaking down what this fight actually reveals about Lydia, Zach, Ethan, Isaac, Kim, and the entire Plath family system, because this is not just about alcohol, music, or a card game. This is about control. It is about loyalty. It is about religion. And it is about what happens when adult children start realizing the rules they grew up with do not feel so holy when someone else starts enforcing them. Let's start with the actual conflict. According to Ethan and Isaac, the issue started during the Montana trip. They claim Zach was making comments about things in the house, like alcohol, certain games, TV shows, music, and the overall environment. The big complaint is that Zach allegedly pulled some of the girls aside when Ethan was not around and told them that certain things did not honor God. Now, I want to be clear. We are hearing this through Ethan and Isaac's version of events. That matters. Reality TV loves giving us half a conversation and then letting everyone fight in the comments like unpaid courtroom attorneys. But even if we treat the allegation carefully, the issue is pretty obvious. Zach's problem is not that he has conservative beliefs. The problem is boundaries. There is a huge difference between saying, "I personally do not drink," and saying, "You should not have alcohol in your own home." There is a huge difference between saying, "This kind of entertainment is not for me," and saying, "Your music, your games, and your TV shows are spiritually wrong." One is a personal conviction, the other is a judgment. And when you are a guest in someone else's home, that difference matters. That is where Zach appears to cross the line, at least from Ethan and Isaac's perspective. He may believe he is protecting people. He may think he is standing up for his faith. He may even believe he is being loving. But here is the problem. Protection that nobody asked for can start feeling like control. That is the line Zach seems to keep walking, and this is where the audience is split. Some viewers look at Zach and say, he is controlling. He came into this family and started policing everyone. And honestly, based on what Ethan and Isaac are saying, I understand why people feel that way. But then another group of viewers is asking a much sharper question. Where did Lydia learn this worldview? Because Lydia did not grow up in a loose, anything-goes household. She grew up in the Plath home. The same family now acting uncomfortable with strict religious judgment, once built an entire household around strict religious judgment. That is the contradiction. You cannot raise your children inside a rulebook, praise them for obeying it, and then act personally betrayed when one of them grows up and keeps reading from it. That is why this storyline is so fascinating. Because yes, Zach may be overstepping, but the Plaths are not innocent bystanders watching some stranger corrupt their daughter. In some ways, Zach is reinforcing values Lydia already had. And that may be what makes everyone so uncomfortable. It is not just that Zach is judging them. It is that Zach and Lydia are holding up a mirror to the family's past, and nobody likes what they see. Now let's talk about Ethan and Isaac, because their reaction is important. They are not just casually annoyed. They are genuinely bothered, especially Ethan. And that makes sense when you think about his history. Ethan has already lived through what happens when the Plath family disapproves of someone's spouse. Olivia became the outsider. Olivia became the problem. Olivia became the person everyone projected their family issues onto. So Ethan knows this pattern. But here is the twist. This time, Ethan is not the one defending the outsider. This time, he is one of the siblings questioning him. That is a huge shift. And it raises a question. Is Ethan reacting to Zach as an individual, or is he reacting to the entire family pattern repeating itself? Because Zach seems to represent something Ethan has spent years trying to escape. The judgment, the religious pressure, the idea that someone else gets to decide what is acceptable. So when Ethan hears that Zach was allegedly criticizing Mariah's house, the alcohol, the games, and the music, it probably hits more than one nerve. It is not just about Mariah. It is about the old Plath rules coming back through a new person. And Isaac seems frustrated too, but in a slightly different way. Isaac's anger feels more protective. He does not like the idea of Zach coming into the family and telling people how to live, especially when Zach is still relatively new to the group. That is why the Montana situation feels like a tipping point. This is not a fresh conflict. The tension started before the wedding. Ethan and Isaac already had concerns about how fast Lydia and Zach moved. They questioned the relationship. They questioned Zach. They were not fully comfortable. So by the time Montana happens, the family is already loaded with suspicion. All it takes is one comment about alcohol or God or music, and suddenly every old concern feels confirmed. That is how family conflict works. One small moment becomes evidence for everything people already believed, and that is exactly what is happening here. Now, Lydia might be the most emotionally trapped person in this entire storyline, because from her point of view, she probably feels like her family never gave Zach a fair chance. She knows they had concerns before the wedding. She knows they questioned the relationship. She knows they did not fully support how fast things moved. So when they criticize Zach now, Lydia may not hear, "We are worried about his behavior." She may hear, "We still do not trust your choice." And that is a very different wound. This is where Lydia's loyalty becomes complicated. She is newly married. She wants to protect her husband. She wants the family to accept him. She wants everyone to move forward. But the harder she defends Zach, the more the family worries that he has too much influence over her. And the more they criticize Zach, the more Lydia feels like she has to defend him. That is the trap. Both sides are making the other side more extreme. The family pushes harder, so Lydia clings tighter. Lydia clings tighter, so the family gets more suspicious. And around they go, because apparently one family cannot just communicate directly and go drink water like normal people. But seriously, Lydia's position is painful. She is trying to be the loyal wife and the good daughter at the same time. That sounds nice until both roles start demanding opposite things. Her husband wants her to stand with him. Her family wants her to listen to their concerns. And Lydia is stuck in the middle, trying not to betray anyone, while everyone quietly asks her to pick a side. That is why I do not think Lydia is just blindly defending Zach. I think she is defending her marriage, her judgment, and maybe even the version of herself that still believes the values she was raised with were good. That is a lot deeper than just, Lydia is choosing Zach over her family. Now we have to talk about Kim, because Kim's role in this whole thing is interesting. Kim is not necessarily the loudest person in every scene, but she often ends up in the middle of the information flow. She hears things from Lydia, she hears things from Mariah, she hears things from Ethan and Isaac. and somehow she becomes part of the process where everyone's private frustrations start moving around the family. That is why some fans accuse Kim of triangulating. To be clear, that is fan interpretation, not confirmed fact. But the reason people say it is because this family often does not handle conflict directly. Instead, one person tells another person, who tells another sibling, who brings it to someone else, and then suddenly the whole family is mad before the original conversation even happens. This is not communication, this is emotional telephone, and Kim has been accused by viewers before of managing the family narrative. So when she appears connected to the Zach and Lydia tension, people immediately start asking whether she is genuinely concerned or whether she is helping steer the conflict. The truth may be somewhere in the middle. Kim may really believe Zach and Lydia are being judgmental. She may also be uncomfortable because Lydia is now living out a version of the values Kim once supported, but in a way Kim no longer controls. That is a fascinating shift. Because when Lydia was the sweet, obedient, religious daughter inside Kim and Barry's household, that made sense to the family system. But when Lydia becomes a married woman with a husband who reinforces those same values, suddenly the family sees her as influenced, extreme, or disconnected. That is the irony. Lydia did not necessarily change into something new. She may have stayed too close to what the family used to be. And now everybody is acting like she is the strange one. Now let's get into the fan reaction, because this is where the storyline becomes even more interesting. The audience is split almost perfectly. One side is saying, Zach is judgmental. He is overstepping. He came into the family and started acting like he had authority over people who never asked for his opinion. And honestly, that side has a point. If Zach really was commenting on someone else's home, someone else's alcohol, someone else's games, and someone else's lifestyle, then yes, that comes across as controlling, especially when he is new to the family and has not built enough trust for those conversations. But the other side of the audience is saying, hold on, the Plaths created this. And that argument is harder to dismiss, because Lydia was raised in a home where strict spiritual standards were normal. So if she and Zach now care about what honors God, that did not come from nowhere. That is why some viewers think the family is being hypocritical. They are not mad because Lydia rejected the family's values. They are mad because Lydia kept them, while everyone else started moving away. Then there is another fan theory floating around, and again, this is opinion, not confirmed fact. Some viewers think Kim is quietly fueling the conflict. They believe she is letting Ethan and Isaac confront Lydia and Zach so she does not have to look like the bad guy. Now, whether you agree with that or not, it shows how little trust the audience has in Kim's role as the family mediator. When viewers already see someone as controlling, every conversation starts to look strategic. And then there is the pro-Lydia side. Some fans are saying Lydia has every right to have boundaries around alcohol, entertainment, and what younger siblings are exposed to. They argue that if Lydia's values are strict, that does not automatically make her evil. And that is fair too. The problem is not having boundaries. The problem is trying to enforce those boundaries in spaces that do not belong to you. That is where this entire debate lives. Lydia and Zach can decide what happens in their home. Mariah can decide what happens in hers. The conflict begins when one side starts acting like their convictions should become everyone else's rules. And after the finale, Lydia defended Zach online, saying the show only captures a small part of their life and that viewers were misreading certain moments. That is worth mentioning because reality TV editing matters. Editing can make someone look colder, harsher, quieter, louder, more controlling, or more passive than they really are. But editing cannot create tension out of absolutely nothing, so the fair take is this. We may not know the full story, but we do know the conflict is real enough that multiple family members are reacting to it. That is why the fan debate is not going away. Here is the part that makes this storyline feel familiar. The Plath family seems to repeat the same relationship pattern. Step 1, someone brings in a partner. Step 2, the family becomes suspicious of that partner's influence. Step 3, private concerns become group discussions. Step 4, the partner becomes the symbol of everything wrong. Step 5, The family member in the relationship is pressured to choose between their partner and their family. We saw it with Ethan and Olivia. Now we are seeing a version of it with Lydia and Zach. Different couple, same machine. And that does not mean Olivia and Zach are the same person. They are very different. Olivia challenged the Plath family by pulling Ethan away from the family's control and pushing him toward independence. Zach appears to challenge the family in the opposite direction by pulling Lydia deeper into strict religious values. But the family reaction is similar. The outsider becomes the threat. That is the pattern. And this is why I do not think this conflict can be reduced to Zach bad or Plath's bad. There are warning signs on every side. For Zach, the warning sign is moral authority. He may believe he is leading spiritually, but if that leadership sounds like criticism, people are going to push back. He also seems at risk of speaking for Lydia too much, which is exactly why fans get uncomfortable. For Lydia, the warning sign is over-defending. She may be so focused on protecting Zach that she cannot hear when her family has a legitimate concern, and she may be interpreting every criticism of Zach as a rejection of her. For Ethan and Isaac, the warning sign is group pressure. They may have valid concerns, but if they come at Lydia as a united front, she is just going to feel attacked. And for Kim, the warning sign is narrative control. Even when she is not the center of the conflict, viewers often feel like she is somehow near the wiring. That is the Plath family problem in one sentence. Nobody trusts anybody's motives, and when there is no trust, even a normal disagreement turns into a full family war. So where does this go from here? I do not think one apology fixes this. Because this was never really about one Montana trip. The Montana trip was just the moment everything became visible. The real conflict is about who gets to define morality in this family now that the kids are adults. Kim and Barry once set the rules. Now the adult children are choosing different paths. Mariah is living differently. Ethan has clearly changed. Isaac seems less willing to accept religious judgment from someone who just entered the family. Lydia is still closer to the old belief system, and Zach seems to reinforce that. So now the family has a problem. There is no single Plath rulebook anymore, and that means every gathering becomes a negotiation. What is acceptable? What crosses the line? Who gets to speak up? Who gets to say, "This does not honor God"? And who gets to say, "This is my house, stay in your lane"? That is the real fight. My prediction is that Lydia and Zach will probably create more distance from the family if they continue to feel ganged up on. That is what couples usually do when they feel like everyone is against them. I also think Ethan and Isaac will stay skeptical unless Zach changes his approach. He does not have to abandon his beliefs, but he does need to learn the difference between influence and control. And Lydia has a hard road ahead, because she may eventually have to ask herself a painful question. Am I defending Zach because he is being misunderstood? Or am I defending him because admitting my family has a point would feel like admitting I made the wrong choice? That is not an easy question, especially early in a marriage. As for Kim, I think her relationship with Lydia could get more strained if Lydia starts feeling like Kim is helping turn the siblings against her. Even if Kim believes she is protecting her daughter, Lydia may experience it as betrayal, and the audience will stay split because both sides keep giving people evidence. Zach gives critics plenty to work with when he sounds preachy or judgmental. The Plath family gives Zach's defenders plenty to work with when they act shocked by the very beliefs they helped create. That is why this storyline has legs. It is not just drama for one episode. It is a long-term family identity crisis. So here is where I land. Zach may have crossed boundaries. If he really criticized Mariah's home, the alcohol, the games, the music, or the way people were living, then Ethan and Isaac have a real reason to be frustrated. You do not walk into someone else's home and act like your personal beliefs give you authority over their life. But the Plaths also have to face their own contradiction. They raised Lydia inside a strict religious system. They praised obedience. They built a family culture around rules, purity, and separation from the outside world. So now that Lydia is still carrying some of those values into adulthood, they cannot act like she became this way in a vacuum. That is what makes this conflict so layered. Lydia is caught between the daughter her parents raised and the wife Zach expects her to be. Zach is caught between wanting to be a spiritual leader and coming across like he is trying to control people. Ethan and Isaac are caught between protecting their sister and repeating the same family pressure they once hated. And Kim is caught in the middle, whether as a concerned mother, a narrator of the chaos, or depending on who you ask, the quiet engine behind the scenes. The biggest issue is not alcohol. It is not music. It is not card games. It is not even Montana. The real issue is that the Plath family has changed, but not everyone has changed in the same direction. And now they are all looking at each other like, wait, who are we supposed to be now? That is why this fight feels bigger than Zach. It is about the entire family trying to figure out what values still matter, who gets to enforce them, and whether love in this family always comes with conditions. So now I want to know where you stand. Do you think Zach is genuinely controlling? Or do you think the Plath family is turning him into the new Olivia because they need an outsider to blame? Drop your take in the comments, because this one is not as simple as the family wants it to be.